Hey there, welcome back to the Blink Weekly Newsletter 101s with Bianca Vlogger. I'm Bianca Vlogger and I help leaders navigate through tricky work conversations and business moves. So let's dive into our question of the week. The question is, hey Bianca, you seem like you have so much confidence with the way you speak. I'm hoping you can help. I'm a VP for a smaller company and have always gotten by with presentations and group meetings. But if I'm being honest, I hate speaking in front of groups. Even though I have worked with my CEO and COO for several years, it still makes me nervous to present my team's work to them. Any advice on how to overcome this mini stage fright? Oh goodness, what a common fear and skill really area that people seek out for development so much. Most of the courses that I've created, in fact, really even the reason I started creating online courses was because of my presentation skills, my public speaking skills, and really sort of teaching people how to be confident when they present to others, when they speak to others, when they're interacting, networking, and things like that. And by any stretch of the imagination, I am not the most perfect public speaker. I am absolutely not even the most confident person in the world. But I think there is a lot to be said for being able to articulate and kind of hold your composure and poise while you are presenting with other people. This is a crucial leadership skill that you develop, and as you get promoted in your career, as you move through different roles that you might have, how you facilitate discussions, how you present information is vital, absolutely, to not only your credibility, but also in a lot of the work that you start doing becomes really surrounded by things like that. You're constantly in a position as a leader to facilitate information, especially if you're in a leadership position like maybe director or VP role where you're reporting to executives. You're reporting to folks who can be super intimidating. They probably have a sense of I know everything, or they could have that sense. They could also, be really confident themselves, and that's a little off kilter. And they could also just simply actually be subject matter experts in the information that you are discussing. And so that can make you feel really intimidated if you feel like, gosh, I don't know as much as them. Even if they're kind, it can really be difficult in overcoming your anxiety and fear about how you're going to come off, or if you sound stupid and things like that. So there's definitely some key advice here. And the great thing is that, of course, you have a relationship with these folks. You've been working together for a while. So there's a great place to kind of begin, your affirmations really to yourself, and understanding that, you are here for a reason. You have been given this position for a reason, and the work that you do in whole is reflected in how well your career is going, and these people do respect you, or at least it sounds like they do. And I think that kind of reminder to yourself first and foremost is really important. Really, those daily affirmations and those affirmations that you are telling yourself before you walk into that room is absolutely necessary. It's a part of your preparation for getting in front of groups like that. There's 3 P's that I talk about a lot in my other courses, which is preparation, presence, and positivity. So the preparation that you do is really your mindset. It starts there. It starts with visualizing a successful outcome, and it starts with telling yourself that you got this, that you know what you're doing, and that you will be just fine. Another part of preparation is practicing in a recording. Literally record yourself, give a presentation to the camera, talk about your talking points, not just in your head and kind of mumbling, but actually record it And the really difficult part, watch it back. It's the worst to do. Trust me, it's awful. I have to do it all the time. And it can be so cringy and it can be so just like, oh my gosh. And it's not going to be perfect, but it's not meant to be. It's supposed to just give you the practice of actually saying the words so that when you say these phrases, these key words, these key ideas, you really memorize them and really are ingrained with what it is that you're talking about. And that will make your voice sound less shaky. It will help your nerves in the moment to sort of have that muscle memory to rely on, so that you don't come off as scattered, and you can really sound, again, you can hear that voice inflection in my voice when I'm this is something that may, or when you're saying this is something that I know what I'm talking about, right? You have a lower register. You have a much more direct, you're not ending the sentence with a question like, this is something I know what I'm talking about, right? You hear that, you're saying, this is something I know what I'm talking about. That's a cue and that's a trick, and that's something that is, that takes practice. So again, practice and listen to what your voice sounds like, and just using the words that you have prepared will help you, again, in that muscle memory, and you won't have to be self-consciously, in the moment thinking like, use that lower register, like, whatever. You will just automatically do it. And I think that's what comes off as confident the most. I think that being said, you are absolutely going to mess up. You're going to stumble over your words. You're going to mispronounce something. Just keep going. You have to, again, just kind of remember that you're human. They know you're human. It's really not, nobody expects you to be perfect, ever. As a matter of fact, it's really relatable and it's really comforting. Think about it. When you watch somebody else make a mistake on a video, on a stage, and it throws them off and they get nervous or they over apologize for it, or they just can't get over it in their head, it is like secondhand embarrassment. Like, it is like difficult to watch that as an audience member. Like, you're just like, oh, like you're cringing. You're just like, oh my God, please stop. Just keep going. We all just want to get through this awkward moment. And so help your audience just not feel awkward, help your audience by quickly addressing it, laugh it off, whatever, and move on, because that helps them feel confident in you to know like, look at her, she made a mistake, but it doesn't faze her. I think that is also a powerful situation too. So using those mistakes as leverage points to even show your self-assuredness is something to think about as well. Now, that being said, the content of what you're saying is important, right? You want to convey your expertise in the matter, but especially if you're walking into a room with your CEO, with your COO, with somebody who's, again, are subject matter experts or just have more experience than you or something like that, your job really isn't, and this is true really for any, presentation that you give, but your job really isn't to be the know-it-all and tell these, give them a lecture and everybody's gonna be dazzled by how much you know. What you're doing is facilitating a conversation and a discussion, organizing the ideas and facilitating the room to walk through these ideas with you. Now, when you accept that as a role for yourself, it does get a bit easier, because probably what's tripping you up as well is that you're getting grilled or like there's a sense that like maybe you need to know information or you didn't have the right chart in the slide deck, or so this can happen a lot with executives as well. Our minds are moving a million miles a minute, and when we're digesting information, we don't have a lot of time to spend on each subject, so we have to really quickly work through our ideas, and it can sound like criticism coming out. It can sound like, oh, you missed something, oh, you don't know enough or something. But these are so oftentimes just reactions of what we're seeing and questions that we might have in the moment, but they aren't necessarily dictations of, what should be done in the grand scheme of things. Now, that sounds confusing and complicated, but here's an example, right? Let's say you're in marketing and you're showing, the last quarter's statistics, or I don't know, something, right? And the executive is like, oh, of those leads, how many came from the education industry? And you don't know, right? Like, you just didn't look at that. That just wasn't something that you focused on because whatever, just focused on other things. And in the moment you can feel like, oh God, I'm such a moron. Of course he cares about education. We've been talking about education, whatever, like, how do I not have this? And a couple things can happen. You can start making things up. You can start sort of scrambling and rambling for answers. Or you can simply and confidently say, I'm not sure, but let me look into that and get back to you. Or I don't know, but I'll have Jackie on my team pull that information. Or I got that wrong. I apologize. There should have been a deep dive of information. I can follow up with you in an email after this. You're simply just not going to know everything, and you're not going to memorize every single piece of data that your executives want to drill down on. It's just not possible. And they might seem like really impatient people, and they might even have the giving you the impression that's like, come on, listen, I mean, like, everybody's a little bit toxic sometimes, right? And so, like, don't necessarily take their impatience as criticism. It is sometimes just an urgency that they feel in their own time, that they need to get through information really quickly, or they're already jumping to the next conclusion because, frankly, they do have more experience, and so they understand what to do with some of these data points, or how to take them to the next level that you just haven't seen yet, or you just haven't fully digested yet. That's okay. I mean, trust me, there's stuff on their end as executives that they could do to be more effective with you in those meetings, but not everybody's perfect, right? And so to step into the mindset of those executives and understand your audience, understand where they're coming from, and understand their motivations is really helpful to know that this isn't necessarily a gotcha moment, right? This isn't like people are trying to make you feel dumb or feel off, that this is just them kind of rapid fire going through. And I've seen this happen so many times, and I'm sure I've done this to other people too. It's just like, let's move to the next data point. So, kind of taking a humbleness to your approach in here too, is to kind of, say, totally get where you're coming from. I'll follow up with you on that. And keep going. Ask clarifying questions just so that you understand. And make sure that you are taking action on items that were really actually important to follow up on. So, knowing that you don't have to like be an actual complete expert and have everything memorized, take it all with a grain of salt. Now that being said too, I mean, this gives you an opportunity, right? Like, let's say there is something that comes up that you're like, oh, that's a weakness. I don't understand that. The feeling sometimes is to kind of fake the funk. And sometimes that's just what you have to do, right? You're just like, oh, yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. Like, maybe they're talking about some high level financial statement concept that you just, you didn't go to business school, or, you haven't taken a look at these things, like you don't understand. Now, I mean, yeah, sometimes, depending on the situation, you kind of go Google it later and figure it out. But know that in that moment too, it's okay to ask clarifying questions. It's okay to lean on the expertise in the room and to say, you know what, Bob, that's not an area that I'm completely versed in. Could you tell me a little bit more about that? I'd like to understand, where you're going with that question. Or can you give me some context as to, what that question means, or how that fits into the larger strategy of the company? Those are really, really intelligent questions and really good questions to ask. And any executive would be happy to tell you what they think, or how that fits into maybe their broader ideas. And it's very much okay for you to ask clarifications and give them an opportunity to, again, start a discussion amongst themselves or amongst the room that you are facilitating, that you are organizing, that you mend together at the end, and you sort of make sure that you maintain control of the room so that everybody is able to share their expertise. You learn something, other people learn something, and it gives you guys an opportunity to discuss important strategic ideas and concepts, and really, get stuff done and really, work well together as a team. That's what great meetings are all about. That's what great presentations are all about, especially internal ones, is that, understand that you don't have to acquiesce the floor to everybody and it's like, oh, I don't know anything, I'll let you guys talk. But having a sense of being a facilitator in the room of where this conversation is going, knowing that your presentation is helpful as a guide, but also that it's supplemental to what is happening within the room and the dynamics of the room. So, keeping your goals, I think, focused is really helpful, but keeping an open mind towards what sometimes data or sometimes discussion of team performance, the ideas that can kind of come out and how to kind of gather those ideas and keep the group focused in a facilitated conversation. It's a skill set to develop. These are pretty high level and executive level skill sets that take time. Understand that you're just not going to be great at it constantly. There's dynamics, there's personalities, there's all sorts of things to manage, but there are some, kind of concepts that I discussed today that you might want to dive into more. I highly recommend, designating some time for yourself for further learning. Much more practice. It just takes practice. Like I said, you can always just use your phone and record. That's a really easy way to do it. But consistency is key. Making sure that you're listening to podcasts, writing into the Blink Weekly newsletter, and gaining this kind of knowledge it's really good to see. And it's also something that you do need to commit to understand. It's like, I need, I have a weakness here in this area. This is a skill gap that I have. And so how can I rely on information out there? And there's so much on the internet with people telling you what to do all the time. It's very useful though, and most of it's free. So take advantage of it. Fit it into your work schedule. Be open with your bosses and boss about the fact that you are working on this and it's something that you want to feel more confident in. Sometimes they will open up resources for you, and sometimes they also will just sort of help you, guide you and coach you if they can, or at least, have patience with you as you are learning and trying to get better at this one area. Everybody loves to see that interest in growth. And certainly as an executive, I can say it would be incredibly encouraging to listen to that from my staff member and know that this is something that, is a career skill set that they are looking forward to gaining, better experience on. So we'd love to see that. Okay, well, thank you very much for the question. It's one of my favorite topics, and I think that, again, it's just such a high level thing and so important. There's so many basic kind of presenting to people tips and tricks, and those are all really valid and good too. I think when you're in a room with your executives in an internal meeting like that, it's a particularly specific thing and dynamic that you have to navigate through. So hopefully you found my tips today useful. I thank you all for tuning in. This has been the Blink Weekly Newsletter 101 with Bianca Blogger, where I share tips on navigating through leadership conversations and business moves. So thank you all.